Welcome to a meeting of the Holiday Island Board of Commissioners. Today is Monday, February 27th. This is a business meeting of the board held in public. The board is committed to disclosure of the business activities of the district to the public, as well as the public's ability to make comments at public meetings. On behalf of the Holiday Island Board of Commissioners, I call this meeting to order. I want to remind all in attendance that the Board of Commissioners acts as a governing body, whereas the district manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the district. It is not the responsibility of the commissioners to become involved in the daily operations of the district. Members of the audience are offered an opportunity to make comments at two different times during the meeting. The purpose of public is to offer individuals an opportunity to state an opinion, provide information, or present a matter that, in the speaker's opinion, deserves the attention of the commissioners. Let us stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
Commissioner Childers, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioner Brown?
Here.
Commissioner Stamps?
Absent?
Commissioner Dyer?
Absent?
Commissioner Surratt?
Here.
Commissioner Childers? Here.
With the presence of 3 commissioners, I declare a quorum. Commissioners, you have had an opportunity to review the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second. I know it's tough going. Thank you, ma'am. It has been moved by Commissioner Brown and seconded by Chair Surratt to approve the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The motion to approve the agenda is carried. Next item is the approval of the minutes. We had a regular meeting on January 23rd and a special meeting on February 13th. Commissioners, you have received by email the minutes of the last 2 meetings. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as emailed?
So moved.
Second.
It has been moved by Commissioner Childers and seconded by Commissioner Brown to approve the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The ayes have it, and the motion to approve the minutes is carried. I don't have anything for ceremonial. Does anyone have anything to offer?
Madam Chair, I have an announcement about the hailstorm we had in Holiday Island. My wife and I were in Austin when that happened, and we got home a few days later, and 3 of our neighbors said, hey, we have to have a new roof put on. What's yours? And we had a company that was going around checking roofs and so forth, and they've been doing a good job of it. But one of the things I wanted to mention, in case you didn't know, in case you've never been through storm damage, is that your insurance company has to approve the claim. So we found that out that the claims adjuster for my insurance company is coming a week from today. But it looks like the damage to our home is $25,000 for a new roof, vinyl siding. And my neighbor and friend Sherry also had damage. And it's interesting, it came in from one side, like the east side of our street, but the west side, there was no damage whatsoever. And that held true sort of up and down the street. There was damage all over the area, and some of you were lucky enough to not have any, and some not. But I just wanted to, I was in Houston during hurricanes, and you'll get a lot of fly-by-night operators come in, okay? They'll say, $10,000, give me $5,000 now, I'll order the shingles, and we'll have it done in 2 weeks. Guess what? Your $5,000 goes flying away, and you don't get any job. So I know I haven't talked to Mr. Presley yet about any damage to our buildings at Heisted, but it was sort of spotty, and I was hoping that you were okay. And but the vinyl siding was the interesting thing to me. And most people said it came straight down. It didn't. At our home, it came that way. But so check your insurance policy, call your agent, and so forth if you feel. And you shouldn't get up on the roof. I didn't. I've got a roof that's like that. But anyway, that's a sort of public service announcement.
Thank you. Any other announcements? We will now move on to public comments. District regulations. We ask that you move to the podium for your comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address so it may be noted in the minutes. Please understand that commissioners will listen to your comments, but in general will not respond, as your comment is not an agenda item. We may refer your comment to the district manager for additional investigation. And Robin Pence, did you wish to make a public comment at this time? No. Angelique Geyer, did you wish to make a public comment at this time? No. Ray, did you wish to make a public comment?
Actually, I hadn't thought about doing it until I didn't see this on the agenda this morning, but I see there's no district manager report on the agenda this morning, and this is the regular meeting for January, right? So what I see missing is something we're hearing about on social media only, and that is that the water grant was not submitted for the December cycle. And I've already communicated with Danny about this, and I understand that it wasn't submitted because it required more engineering services. So, I'll stand back. So, anyway, one of the things that occurred to me is something that the commissioners need to think about, and that is that my understanding all along with the engineering services is that their services are covered by the grant if we get a grant. If we don't get a grant, all the time and effort they spend on designing and putting together the plan for something we're going to implement ourselves is not paid for. We have to pay for that out of pocket. And I think that makes it even more necessary to consider getting grants because those engineering services are very expensive. So that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
We missed your address, I think.
Oh, I didn't give it. 29 Table Rock Drive. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Gray. Steve Crow.
I'll wait.
So what did you wish to address? The new business?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. We will now move on to our reports. As a reminder, attendees with business before the board have been invited to be here. They are not restricted to the 3-minute time limit. These attendees may include all department managers and any outside consultants invited to make presentations to the board. And so now we will move to our first report, District Manager Presley, regarding the update on amenities.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Unfortunately, Warren Bernstein cannot be here today. He is ill. But he did send me an email as it relates to amenity maintenance. Some of you know that we were looking at replacing the flooring in the dining room, and that is going to start this week. In fact, it may start today. So if you go to the restaurant, you may see that they're in there working, and it's going to be disruptive for a few days, but that's not a very big area. It shouldn't take them but a couple of days to get that finished. So glad to get that project done. There were also some doors that needed to be replaced there at the clubhouse, and that is being done by Eureka Glass. Those doors have been ordered for several weeks, and we don't have an update on the timeline, but that project will be finished fairly soon. And also, as it relates to the restaurant, there are some maintenance needs back there in the kitchen. The walk-in cooler, a vent hood, and it seems like there was one other item that he mentioned. So we're going to be getting bids on those items as well. And then there was a lot of discussion at several consecutive meetings about the restrooms there. And that's all been fixed. They had to jackhammer up the slab and put in new plumbing and grease trap and all of that. All that's been done, taken care of. So glad to get that finished. So
May I make one more comment?
Sure.
Interrupt briefly. I asked Commissioner Stamps for if he had any input he was going on to talk about it. And he says there's a urinal on the 9-hole golf course that's not working. So well, it's not one plumbing problem, it's another.
no, just,
Oh, you can't keep up with the plumbing.
Tyler, can you ask David, or are you familiar with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Whenever the season gets going, I'm gonna take a look at that.
Okay.
But right now we got everything kind of shut off.
Okay.
We had freezing problems recently when I've got cold street.
Mhm.
Whenever I get the water going, I'll look at it.
Okay.
Ms. Murphy.
I also have a plumber coming to look at it. He came to my house to fix something, so he put me on the list to go down there.
Great.
Okay, good. Well, we will get that one done.
Mr. Stamps' other question was regarding possibly hiring a full-time maintenance person, which is something we talked about and considered.
Yes.
I'm sorry, did you?
So that's what I had on behalf of Lauren. That was his list. So several things that are getting fixed there at the restaurant and clubhouse this year.
What I would also remind everyone, we have unallocated capital improvements money that would go towards that type of project.
Yes.
And we would vote on that at an upcoming meeting, when we get the bids and decide how we're going to allocate that CIP money.
Yes.
I'm sure I have one question, Danny, is the driving range now officially closed?
Yes. And Janice Murphy, our manager over the rec center, is here. Janice, would you like to come to the lectern and tell us what maintenance needs you have down there?
You brought help.
I did.
Knows everything more than I do. I just get a list from her, but she really knows what's going on.
Will you introduce her, please?
Okay, I'm Janice Murphy, 7 Hillcrest Drive, also of the rec center. This is Kim Shanka,
317 State Line Drive, also the rec center.
but also lives in Holiday Island. Okay. I don't know where to start. Which one? What we definitely need necessary, I guess, at this point is the fencing around the, well, she's got some pictures I think I sent over. The pickleball court fence has now completely, or pretty much leaned into the court with the
This last night.
this last winter thing, as well as the porta potty has fallen over too, so I'll have to call him when I get down here. Yeah, that's the fence around,
But that's the fence around the pickleball court, the one that blew in.
that blew in today, so it's leaning inside.
I'm going too fast.
Oh, you're going too fast, okay, back up.
My
Fingers there, okay. I have 2 quotes, I did receive 2 quotes to replace the fence. The side that has now fallen in, and then the back side is also in need of repair or replacement. These fences were not this tall to begin with. They were only 4 foot, and when the pickleballers decided they wanted windscreens and higher fences,
They came and cut those off, but then they just slid poles on top of the other ones. And were they ever welded? No. They were never welded, they just kind of stood there. But the wind screens is what really did it in. It's a small area that when the wind happens, it's just gonna collapse on them. If you have pickleball courts, like 6 courts, and you put wind screens around the outside, they have a better chance of standing up.
But these were not supported correctly.
They were not supported correctly either for wind screens. So that is one of the major issues you're going to hear about. There were 2 quotes. One came in at like $5,475. The other one came in at $6,700. But it's not an easy fix. That is definitely something we cannot do in-house. We don't have the equipment. We don't have the fencing. I mean, our guys couldn't do that at all. So then that's one of the things. We have leaning fences at the tennis courts too, but they're not really completely down. But that would be something that we would need to address too. They're leaning outward. They're leaning outward. They have braces, but the braces, the support in the concrete and stuff is just not there anymore, so they're kind of leaning out. But we do not have as many tennis players as we do pickleball players.
Sorry,
at
I
this
lost
moment.
my tennis.
I don't know, they're there somewhere. That's okay.
We get this.
Yeah, you get the idea, everything is leaning. All right. Mini golf, people have complained that maybe we need new carpeting on the mini golf. Our guys have gone through and weeded and fixed all the wood around the holes and stuff, and carpeting too. It's another sticker shocker. One place from Berryville came in at about $6,300. I think he's a little off. The next guy from Carpet One, from Rogers, who I thought, well, they'll be cheaper, he came in at $19,000. Replaced all the carpet. Yeah, I mean, it was like crazy, and I'm like, and he actually did a whole picture and everything, and I thought, well, he might be right then, I don't know.
Janice. Audience, about whom are you speaking?
Okay, we're talking about Kim, and she has 2 guys that work with her, Eric and Tommy, who both Holiday Island residents. They are part-time maintenance people.
Okay.
And I have to say, without them, we'd be sunk in water right now, because they have been a godsend to be here with us this year.
Good. So you kept busy all winter?
Yes, yes. We've repainted furniture, and they've been working on everything, so.
Thank you.
So that's the mini golf. We have painted all the signs. I don't know if you must have pictures of those.
We saw that real
Yep, we have a in-house artist, Janice, another namesake of Janice, and she is an artist, and she has been refreshing everything we have. She's just painting and
All the pool signs.
all the pool
And
signs.
now we're working on the golf signs.
Yeah, we've removed some of the golf signs that were close to us because some of the poles have to be replaced. They've been rotten. So we just took the signs off. I did see somebody else painting signs, because I think that was Jay Nygaard is painting signs out there. And so we removed these signs and brought them in, and she's repainting them. And then we'll put them back. The golf course will replace the poles that have been rotted into the ground so they can be put back.
David said he'd help us.
And David said he'd help us too on the golf course with that. Okay, the next thing, oh, we got some signs there? All right. Maybe they'll come up. But she's done a great job. She did such cute signs for the mini golf. She made little characters and put the numbers of each hole.
For the cornhole.
And also for the cornhole.
Oh,
You're not getting them? That's all right.
okay.
Maybe you'll get them. Who knows?
About the barn?
Not yet. Pickleball? Yeah, well, we can get to the barn.
That's
We got
the
the
barn.
pictures at the barn. I haven't got to the barn yet, but that's okay. The barn, this winter, we had water coming in through the kitchen, and we had snow on one place that came in. This building, the barn is itself is one building, but at some time they built on the kitchen and the grill room, the big grill room. And this is kind of what we're seeing, that it's kind of pulling away from the building. So we have issues obviously with the roof.
But after that sleet storm, the issues were really bad in the kitchen. I mean, we had leaks everywhere, which we never have had. And there really wasn't much in the barn itself except that pile of sleet that came down the wall right by the bar.
Yeah.
Have you looked at that recently? About a week and a half ago, I had someone come out to try to do a temporary fix, I guess, just to kind of stop the bleeding. And they worked on it, I think, for a couple of days.
Oh.
Well, there has not been any rain to get in the last rain we've had, but I have not gone up there and looked at it. I sure can.
Okay.
Yeah,
We'll
maybe.
get together on that at some point, maybe the next couple.
But like she said, we had that big rain and the kitchen was dry. So I don't know if it was just the ice buildup under stuff and then, you know, the melting of it, but it really did, yeah, they had buckets all over the kitchen while they were painting in there. But that was the little ice that came in too. I mean, there's
That was
issues
coming
there.
right through the walls.
Yeah. So
It
there's
was like it was sleeting inside, you
It
know?
was sleeting inside, yeah. And that's what the roof looks like. Kim was took the pictures up there, kind of wrinkling and stuff.
Yeah, I'm not so sure that it wasn't such, with the ice up there, just pulled one up and made the leaking go in and down. Because I only had one other spot in the barn that leaked before, and that was taken care of. And that spot, it didn't leak. But everywhere else, we had leaks in there.
So that will be an issue that eventually has to be addressed, I guess, at some point. But I don't have any quotes on a roof for that. You know, Danny's been working on that. So that's the thing at the barn. Oh, and we did have the air conditioning unit, or with the heat pump air conditioning unit that was at the rec center that we saved before it went down, and it has been installed now at the barn. And so that side of the barn should be taken care of fine with air conditioning, and we're good to go on that. We also did move over the electric.
The electric water heater.
The water heater
You
that
got
we
rid of gas.
That's right. So we got rid of all the propane. The tank is gone from the barn. We don't need any propane over there anymore. We've got the heat from those two little things on the side, and now we've got an electric water heater, as well as the water heater upstairs was electric for the women's and men's bathrooms and stuff. So we're good with that. So that was some of the improvements that have been done at the barn. Okay, pool cover. We did, pool cover, you got pool cover up there? Yeah, there it is. Okay, we did replace the big pool because that was away from any of the construction or tear down that was going to happen. So we've got a nice pool cover on the big pool. This is what the existing small pool cover is looking like. It's got holes in it. There's nothing we can do about it's getting down into the pool. It's going to be a major issue cleaning that up when the building is up, so we have electricity and all that stuff. The pool cover in 2021 that was quoted for the small pool will run, at that time it was $7,151. That was for a 5-year warranty, a little less for a lesser warranty, but of course that's 21 prices. So this may not happen until 23 or 24, so you can imagine that the price will be a little bit higher.
Well, the pool cover is from 2090 or 91.
Right.
So it's quite old.
1990.
No, oh yeah,
Not that old. And the company who did our big pool did an excellent job. It's one of those things where you have to take that thing off, fold it up, they come and get it, and then they make it exactly according to the design of it, because that pool is a
But this
different
one
shape.
might not be able to.
Well, they're going to have to figure it out anyway. But we're keeping our fingers crossed that in the mornings we don't find deer in there or anything.
Madam Chair, I have a question. Have deer, little bambies,
Yeah.
have they fallen through the?
Not yet,
Well, I was told from the guys that were taking the building down that that was damage from deer going through it. But I find it hard to believe that the deer wouldn't have just fallen through, you know, I mean.
No. That's,
Deer can now get in there?
yes,
We do have a temporary, like, snow fence
Yeah.
around the front. I mean, when they left, nobody did anything, so we went and put a temporary fence out there so that the pool was not exposed.
right. So that will be the pool cover. Of course, then we got the filter and all the electricity, but that's all part of the build, I guess, a long time as that goes along. Okay, pool decking. That is probably a biggie. This is what the pool decking looks like. That's falling apart. It is pretty bad. There are some pictures that I sent over. You didn't get those? Oh, all right. It's flipped up. In other words, it's not smooth anymore. There are places that is lifting, and it's a tripping hazard at this point. We don't know what's underneath it. We've pulled some of it up. It looks like dirt and concrete. Can't be sure. My suggestion is that when the pool gets ready to be open, we need to cut out places so that we could get to the part that is still down good, because at this point, you know, a little foot that gets caught in this will just go right down. Even an adult will. It's worse at the deep end because that's where kids get out of the water, they're dripping wet, they run, they jump in, and it's back and forth. So that's been worn down the worst. There's other places around the pool that's not that bad, but I still suggest that somewhere along the line before the pool opens, we've got to remedy some of that lifting if we can't replace it. Which I'm sure we can't, because in 2021, the range to replace the pool decking around the big pool was anywhere between $98,000 and $130,000. That was just to replace the decking. The removal was another $20,000 to remove what was there. It could not be piecemealed. I had somebody who I took a lot of pictures and sent to them, and they said it was more than 20% damaged, so to repair it was not an option. You have to remove the whole thing and start all over with what
I
it
would
was.
do something else too.
Yeah, I wouldn't do rubber.
I wouldn't do rubber rock.
We'll figure that out.
Yeah, that's later.
Obviously, that's going to be probably next year's budget.
Somewhere,
Okay.
yeah.
Part of it.
What else? I could go on. We have playground equipment that could be updated, but that too is expensive. That's another between $14,000 and $20,000 to replace what's there. We try to keep it up. I told them to go out and check the equipment out there, make sure there's no place of a hazard. Some kid getting hurt with, sliding down a slide that has some edges or something.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, she said pretty much everything was fine out there.
It needs painting, probably, but when we lost a slide on it about 10 years ago, because it was cut, so we had to take it off, and we called the company Miracle, and at that time, we couldn't even find a replacement for that because the equipment was so old. But I know that company Miracle has a lot of nice stuff. Eventually, it'd be nice because the playground is used a whole lot. If anything down there is used, it's the playground.
Yeah, they're coming down there more and more. The basketball court, we're going to paint it, put lines in it. Basketball, they've already done the backboards. They did a good job on that.
Yeah, well, it needs refinishing. And we felt that we could do that in-house if we get enough time in the summer.
Yeah,
When it's nice enough to paint,
When it's nice enough to paint, they can do that, yeah. We have changed, we had 4 horseshoe courts back there. And not too many people play horseshoe, but they do like playing cornhole, tossing a cornhole thing. So the guys went out there and refurbished 2 courts to be horseshoe, and 2 they made cornhole. And we purchased these cornhole games, but they're portable, So you take them out, so when somebody wants to play cornholes, some visitor or property owner, we will give them to take out there, but we will secure their driver's license because they are portable. And if they were expensive, and that's how we're going to do it. We're just not going to give them the equipment to take out there. They'd be very easy to put into their car and be gone. Not that I think people are dishonest, but just to be safe. Anything else that I missed? What else did I miss? Okay, here's the other thing that's still up in the air. I have to call the health department in to check the pool out before it opens. And he has already informed me that there has to be a restroom within a reasonable amount of distance from the pool. We cannot use porta potties. That is not acceptable, which I was hoping for. So obviously the only restroom we have is in our location in the island room, which is a walk from the pool there. My biggest concern is that dripping wet doesn't work well on the floors we have in there. That was one of my concerns. The other one is have a stationary fence around it. And when I mentioned that to him, he says it has to be fenced within a reasonable amount of time as well, because it is a hazard that somebody could fall in, or could fall in whoever. I did look to see, I don't know if the builder will supply chain link, temporary fencing, but I did look online and we kind of estimated how far around the small pool we'd have to go, but there's a Hoover Fence company that sells these chain link and panel stands, and probably for the size of our pool, the estimate, what I could figure was maybe about $3,200 to put a temporary fence around there. Because obviously when the building is built, they're going to have to re-fence about around where it was before, which would be enclosing the pool.
Yeah, at this point in time, I don't see the big pool being able to be open with the little pool being open, like it is, exposed.
Yeah, so maybe the builder will have some idea how he can, do something around that little pool.
Say that again, Kim.
Well, I don't see, we had a campground for 18 years, and I knew that always had to be a solid fence around the pool.
Yeah.
The little pool is basically where the building was, that's all wide open.
Okay.
So I do not see that he's going to approve us to open with it being that way. Because it could be, it's a drowning hazard.
Yeah.
I got you.
But I'll ask him that when he comes to,
And another question about the little pool. The people who put down the rec center damaged the plumbing to the little pool. Has that been repaired yet?
No, the little pool can't even be open without electricity to it. So
Yeah.
until I get electricity to it, to see any other damage is just not foreseeable at this time.
But there will be costs to open it up sometime.
Oh, there will be cost to open it, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have, all the electricity is gone for that side.
But weren't the pipes broken by the
Yes,
company?
the pipes broke off at the ground. I don't know where they go, or however, somebody's going to figure that out.
Yes, it's just PVC pipe.
PVC pipe or whatever.
Yeah. One other thing, I want to just put in your head for the big pool, all the piping, all the plumbing, all the sand filters have been there forever. You can only have chlorine going through, 3-inch PVC or 2-inch PVC with chlorine going through it for how many years? I do have a couple little leaks here and there, but just for the future reference, something has to be addressed to the sand filters and the plumbing in that big pool.
Wow.
Okay, stick. But,
Well, no, this is important.
I invite you to come down and look at everything too, someday come and we'll take you around and show you things, if you have to come down there. Yeah, yeah, when it warms up. Thing is to make sure that we have all our ducks in a row to open the big pool. So I will contact, the health department and try to have him come out ahead of time too, to tell us what we need to do or whatever in order to do it, with his approval, okay?
So the
Yes.
leak is like, we have a leak everywhere around Holiday Island. It's like ground, right, with chlorine in it, so it's the same.
No,
Where's
no.
it going? When you said leaking, where's it going?
We get it fixed, you know, like the little.
Oh, leaking,
the
oh,
pipe.
yeah, it's in the pump room.
In the
It's
pump
just in
room.
the pipe, the little, you know, all of a sudden you'll get
A
a
pinhole.
pinhole,
And
and
it gets
it's in
bigger.
a 3-inch thing,
Yeah.
and then it gets bigger than a pinhole, and then,
Yeah, we had the plumber out last year.
Last year we had-
They replaced them. She's really good at replacing pipes too, but when it gets out of her range, you know, then we have to
well,
call
these
plumber.
big ones that scare me.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's not in an underground pipe?
No.
Oh, no.
No.
No, we're not leaking.
Not that we know of, yeah.
And the pool is still, I mean, it doesn't leak water, so, I mean, you're still in
Right.
good shape there.
And we have electricity on that side, so the pumps, or she
Yeah.
can put chlorine in and say, we don't run the pumps yet because it's too early to do that.
Right, yeah, and I still put chlorine in both pools all winter long, well, the little pool I did all summer long last year also, so I still have to be able to get to the little pool to add chlorine on top of all the leaks.
There's gonna be a big cleanup in the little pool, let's put it that way. But I'm glad we didn't get a new cover for it because it would have been destroyed anyway. So we just work with the old one and hope for the best. Okay?
By the way, we have a meeting tomorrow with the contractor that's going to be building the building.
Okay.
So we will discuss the pumps and the temporary fencing.
Okay, that'd be great.
That'd be
And
great.
let me know.
Because,
Yeah,
yeah,
so that's important. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you so much. We appreciate your report. Next, we have, I'm sorry, go ahead. You are on the amenities.
Tyler, do you have anything that you need to discuss before we move on? No, all good? Okay. That's good news, Tyler.
Yay!
I want to make a comment about the barn. The Friends of the Barn has been established for about 11 years now. It's a 501c tax-free corporation, and we've raised about $30,000 over those years. Thanksgiving dinners, Christmas dinners, the CS Bank parking lot, more times than I care to remember. $30,000 went in. 23 new windows were installed. Bob Comer, Chuck Smith, and many others have worked really hard to insulate those windows. Each one was a different size. Okay? We insulated the sides of the barn, but this latest problem with the roof, we cannot handle. We have about 20, when I say we, I was president about 6 years ago, and Chris Elwood is now president of the group. We cannot handle the kind of problems. I was talking to Danny about it, and he also agreed this is a big project. So the board is going to have to decide what the future of the barn is, what the amount of money that we're wanting to spend. Jack, you were here all the time, and some people, when you get a fire, chief aide said, let it go, but we know we don't want to do that. It's a very historic, nice feature of Holiday Island, but there are some big decisions to be made. That roof is huge. I just want to mention, thank you to all the people who have come to our events and supported that money.
Next report is from the fire department, and I would remind the audience that this is just a report for the benefit of the board. There will be no discussion or interaction between the public and the chief with what he reports.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For those that I've not met, I'm Randy. I'm the fire chief for Holiday Island, and I appreciate the opportunity to give a report on things going on with the fire department. Since arrival, I have been besieged with questions regarding our fire rating, our fire hydrants, our abilities, our volunteers, staffing, equipment. It's not a week goes by I don't have people coming into the office asking questions, and I'm also been hearing questions from our commissioners. So I thought this would be a good time just to give you an update on what concrete information that I have received so far. I thought the best way to start this off would be to do a little slide presentation on the fire department and some of the issues we're encountering. Now, remember, I come from a preacher's family, so if I accidentally get passionate, throw in a hallelujah or an amen, y'all just pardon me and ride with it. Holiday Fire Department is what we call a combination fire department. It consists of both paid and volunteer personnel. In the fire department, we have a paid administrator. That's me. I'm the head paperwork shuffler. We have 3 full-time firefighters. The purpose of the full-timers is to make sure that we have at least one person at the station 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Primarily, the bulk of the response load goes to our 25 volunteers that we have. We have room for 35, but at the moment we have 25 as volunteers. We also have 2 part-time firefighters that fill in for us whenever some of the full-timers need to take off for vacation, training, or out sick. Also, some of our volunteers are training to work toward being part-timers as well. Of our volunteer staff, we split them into 3 different categories. We have our firefighters, which are break into 2 categories. We have those that are qualified to go interior to do rescue and fight fires on the inside. And then we have exterior, those that can only operate on the outside or fight brush fires. We run a lot of EMS calls, a lot of emergency medical. 80% of our call volume is medical. And to that end, we are very blessed here in Holiday Island. We have a lot of wonderful volunteers that are emergency medical responders and EMTs. They bear the bulk of the response load and handle the calls while we're waiting on the ambulance. The remainder of our personnel are split up in what we call support and operations. These are folks that can't do, for whatever reason, can't dedicate the time, don't have the physical ability to be firefighters or EMTs. So they assist us where they can with small things, from driving trucks for us, driving tankers, traffic control, fixing coffee, filing, just the support roles that we desperately need in a fire department our size. We operate out of 5 fire stations. Fire station number 1 is at Holiday Island Drive. This is where the administration offices are located in our crew quarters. This building, I believe, was built in the 1970s and has been added on to 3 times. It's a great location. It's right in the center of Holiday Island. Station number 2 is located over in what we call the business district. This protects the shopping centers, Sunfest, the hardware store, and also the assisted living, Peachtree Village. This station is also used for rural response out into the county. In addition to covering Holiday Island, we're also tasked with covering east and west of Holiday Island out into the rural district. Over on the island next to the barn is Station 3. This station is, I like this station because if you're a student of architecture, this is a classic 1970s suburban fire station. It has small crew quarters in it, big bays, lots of storage room. It's a good station. This covers everything on the island, including the condominiums and a higher-end residential neighborhood. Further over, across the bridge, we have the Beavertown Fire Station. This is a fire station that was given to us after the collapse of the Beaver Volunteer Fire Department about 20 years back. We operate this under a contract with Beaver. It's also used for rural response for the west area going out toward the farm and down Highway 187. Yes?
Is there equipment at that Beaver station?
Yes, ma'am, there is. We have a fire engine and a tanker there at Beaver Station. Station number 5, this was built courtesy of our rural board who provided the funds. This covers the north side of Holiday Island. It's located up on State Line Drive. It also assists with rural response when we leave Holiday Island itself. One of the things that a fire department must have is a rating. Somebody has to grade the fire department and say, you're doing well, you're doing poorly, or you're doing mediocre. The company that is responsible for doing our fire rating is called the Insurance Services Office. This is an independent rating agency that grades fire departments and then in turn provides insurance companies with that rating. And then the insurance companies in turn determine hazard insurance for commercial and residential structures based on, partially on the fire rating of the department. The rating, it runs from 1 to 10. 1 is an awesome rating. It's very hard to achieve. We only have 2 fire departments in our area that are 1s. That would be Rogers and Springdale. Of course, they have the budgets and the manpower and the support to be able to get that. The other end of the spectrum is 10. 10 means you have no fire coverage. that you too far out, you don't have a functioning fire department. Most of the towns in Arkansas of our size are 4s and 5s. And that's where we have been for the last several years, is what they call a 5/5X. This means we're right in the middle. It's neither fantastic, but it certainly isn't bad. The X means that the rural area without fire hydrants is subject to a lower rating. In early 2022, we were tested by ISO. They try to hit all the fire departments about every 10 years. When they came through and did our testing in the early spring, they came up with results. They was kind enough to wait to give us those final results until we had a permanent fire chief, me. And when they presented the results to us a couple weeks ago, unfortunately I was a little shocked. I knew that we maybe had fared poorly, but I wasn't expecting what we received. I just want to kind of randomly hand these out so other folks might want to see. What we have is a letter from the Insurance Services Organization telling us that our rating is about to change and change for the worse. If you look at the highlighted section on the top, the rating that they gave us, the new one, is a 6/10. This means that we've gone down from being fair to not quite so fair. The 10, unfortunately, means that part of our district is rated as no significant fire coverage, which will hurt our department tremendously. Also on this, you'll notice that I put a copy of the actual test that they performed and some remediation. I'll go into those in a little bit more detail since it kind of gets technical. So with this new fire rating, they were kind enough to tell us, we're not just going to drop this in your lap. We're not just going to suddenly tell all the insurance companies, hey, this fire department's terrible. Instead, we're going to give you a year to make significant improvements. Why is this important to Holiday Island? Maybe the fire department's not quite as good as it used to be, but how does this affect the residents? That's one of the things that I wanted to bring up before the commissioners, is that the fire rating has a significant impact on the homeowners and commercial insurance. I have here an example. Double size of the starting size is the one. I'll walk through this real quick. This is Mr. Ralph Goodman. If you look at side 1, this was his fire insurance for his home when it was rated at a 6. Now keep in mind, the insurance companies sometimes will deviate from the ratings and produce their own interpretation. I won't say the name of the insurance company, but it is a significant one that's used frequently in our area. But they were rated his home at about a 6. His insurance was less than $3,000 a year. If you flip over onto the back side, some of the insurance companies have already started to grow a little uneasy and have been jumping the gun. His insurance went up to an $8,000 per year. Now, I don't think this is going to be, I'm hoping this is not typical. I certainly hope it's not. So I went after some of the insurance companies trying to get answers. How much is this really going to cost our residents? This can't be, everybody's insurance can't be going to jump up $8,000. That doesn't make sense. And what I discovered is the insurance companies are very tight-lipped. The answer I got from a lot of them were, well, it depends. I did have one independent rating insurance that was kind of giving me this information. It said if you have a 3,000 square foot home on a half-acre lot with perfect credit and no claims, you'll probably go up a minimum of $300 a year. If you have less than perfect credit, you've had claims, you have a fireplace or a wood stove, you have an old roof, this may push your minimum payment up more. I couldn't get a more specific answer from anyone on that, despite frequent questioning. My concern, however, is how is this going to affect Holiday Island's residents? we have a considerable number of folks that are on fixed incomes. They have very limited money. Already they're feeling the effects of the rates rising, the prices rising. Everything's getting more expensive, and it's getting harder to live on a fixed income. And I worry about how this will affect those residents. Also, I am worried how this will affect our commercial insurance with our mom and pop businesses. Holiday Island always needs more businesses. We need more people coming in and being part of the community and opening up their shops. I'm worried this may cause it to be more difficult for our large business to come in and for our smaller businesses to exist. So let's go to the test itself. Why did we do so poorly? What happened? This is going to get a little technical, so I ask you to wade through it with me. The testing is broken into 3 sections. Emergency communications counts for 10% of our test score. The water department and our ability to transport water are 40% of the test score. The fire department itself is 50% of the test score. So let's go into those just a little bit more in depth. 911 communications is 10% of our test score. However, we have no effect upon this because we don't run a communications center. This is handled through Carroll County. In looking at our Carroll County 911, they are struggling with some antiquated equipment and poor procedural handling for 911 calls, training issues, and a lack of staffing. If you saw last week, they had an ad out looking for more dispatchers. They suffer from a high turnover rate. The 911 center also has a lack of credentialed dispatchers. Despite this, they are fantastic with what they have and work well with each other. The county judge has been very verbal that he's committed to improving our dispatch center, as is our new sheriff, Sheriff Klatt. And despite our handicaps, they almost gave us a fantastic score on 911. So we got 5.95 points out of 6 available points. So I am pleased with that, and I'm still pleased further that we're going to still see improvements in our 911. Water department and our water transportability makes up 40% of this test score. Things that affect us, of course, on our water is the size of our mains, the history of frequent breakages, and a lack of record keeping. One of the questions that has been put to me by members of the public quite often is, really, how bad is our water system? How big is these mains? What's going on? So I just thought I'd show you for demonstration. %30% of our water lines are 4-inch lines. They're this size. Whenever we go to a fire, we divert the water main from underground to on top by hooking up to the fire hydrant. We hook up a supply line to the fire hydrant. That's a big outlet you see in front of the fire hydrants. And we lay the hose down the street to the fire. So we move the water main up on the ground surface and we lay a temporary line. If you look at the size of our hose that we use, look at the size of the pipe, you can see where we have a discrepancy. That we don't have quite the size of piping that we need. Fortunately, this is only 30%. The rest is 6 and 8 inch piping.
And 6 and 8 inches adequate?
It is if it has the water flow to go with it. My concern, which I believe this was echoed by Chief Lediker, my predecessor, is that due to the frequent breakages, we have sometimes hydrants that don't put out the volume that we need. This hurt us during our review when the examiner was randomly choosing hydrants to test. One of the hydrants he chose to test had a water main that broke during the test, which of course that gave us a black eye. Another issue that has hurt us is our lack of record keeping. I am very puzzled by this one because I know, talking to previous firefighters, that our fire hydrants have been flow tested. But unfortunately, we're not able to locate any records from 2013 forward. Why? I do not know. But they're nowhere to be found. So that is hurting us. Part of that 40% water rating comes from our ability to move water in the event that we have a hydrant breakage, an area that's not covered by hydrants, or out in the rural district where there are no hydrants. We depend upon 3 trucks to shovel the water. These trucks are quite aged. We have one that's 46 years old, one that's 33 years old, and one that's 22 years old. Unfortunately, all of them have very poor, small payloads and can't transport much water. I went through the examiner's notes with him. We spent about an hour reviewing his field notes. His description of our ability to transport water was fair. Fire department. 50% of the total score for our fire rating, of course, comes from the fire department and our performance and our abilities. The things that we received poor ratings on included our personnel and our staffing, training, our fire engines, and our equipment, and our stations. A little bit more in depth on this. By the way, our total rating on this was about a C, 25 points out of a possible 50. Our water department score was 16 out of 40, which is pretty bad. Anyway, 25 out of 50 for the fire department itself. Let's start with personnel and staffing and why this didn't do real well. The National Fire Protection Association, NFPA, is the organization that sets the standards for what's required of fire departments in the United States. ISO, the insurance services organization that does the rating, follows those standards. Their recommendation is that for every fire engine, we have 6 trained firefighters available to respond. So if we have 5 stations, we have 5 engines, then we have to have 6 personnel per engine. We also operate a ladder truck, and the recommendation there is that we have 3 trained personnel assigned to the ladder truck. That brings us to 33 people in total. Here's the kicker. They have to be on duty. On-call, trained volunteers only count for 1/3 of an on-duty firefighter. That means if we were going to cover the fire department using only volunteers, we would need in excess of 90 firefighters volunteering for the department. As you can see, that's not real realistic for Holiday Island. When looking through our ratings, our response rather, they noted that we have a very poor turnout for calls. In the past few years, we're only averaging 1.25 person for each emergency. Of course, that one is usually the paid person that's on duty. Fortunately, I think we're going to see a change in this. In the last 3 months, we have been blessed with the influx of numerous volunteers. I do believe that we're going to see those rated, that average change substantially. We also noticed that on fires, we were only having an 11% turnout of our volunteer staff for fires. On the training side, they noted that we had a lack of trained volunteers. Right now, of our volunteer staff, I only have 5 that are actually credentialed as firefighters. The Arkansas Fire Academy was given the obligation by the state of Arkansas to set the standards for firefighting, and unfortunately, our volunteers, again, only 5 of them meet their standards. In our review, the examiner told me, he says, you have no new hire training program, either for paid or part-time or volunteer staff. You have a lack of driver training, and the standard calls for 60 hours initial and 12 hours each succeeding year for driver training for the firefighters. You do not have a recruit training program, which is total at 240 hours. And you don't do monthly company training at 16 hours as mandated by NFPA and by the Arkansas Fire Academy. Now, if you look at all of those hours, it totals up to 492. That is a lot of hours to put on a brand new rookie that just joined the fire department, is trying to cope with life, living their life, supporting a family, and volunteering their time. This is in addition to FEMA has requirements on the fire departments that if we want to be credentialed and have adequate funding from the federal government, each of our volunteers and paid staff must attend 4 classes that are 4 hours each. Arkansas Department of Emergency Management says if you're going to respond to any hazardous material incident, your firefighters must have a total of 24 hours training for hazardous materials. Arkansas Act 833, which is separate from the Fire Academy, says that if you're going to get the turnback funds that we have to help fund your department, you must attend 32 hours of training with 2 classes, plus Arkansas Forestry's class of 8 hours. If you're going to be an EMT in Arkansas, you have to do 20 hours of continuing education a year. In-house in the department, we require this training already. You're going to have to learn basic life support CPR, the advanced healthcare provider, because we run so many medical calls. You've got to have that. If you're going to drive an emergency vehicle, most insurance companies require that you have emergency vehicle operations class of 16 hours. DOT says we run the highways. We need an 8-hour class of how to handle car wrecks. And if you want to do just emergency medical responder, you've got to do a 40-hour class. If you want to do EMT, you're up to about a 140-hour class. Anybody keep up with these hours? I totaled it all up. It's 564 hours being put on our staff. That's a quarter of a year. That's a lot. That's well on your way to getting your associate's degree at college. So as you can see, a lot is being asked of our volunteers that we can't meet, and that impacts our rating. Let's move on to some other test problems. Our fire apparatus, we took a hit on this one. Engine 1 is a 1974 model. For those that are history buffs, this is the original Beavertown fire engine that was given to Holiday Island when we took over covering that area. It is completely out of service. It no longer runs, and of course, the ISO said, well, we can't credit that. It's not a working fire engine. Engine number 2 is a 1979 Ford. When going through and reviewing the truck, the reviewer noted that we had a lack of adequate hose, not enough nozzles, not enough adapters. The truck did not have the minimal pump size to be able to operate, and also it has failed every recent pump test. So that truck gave us almost no credit. This is one of our nicer engines. This is engine 3. It's a 2004. Unfortunately, the pump on it is uncertified. It was also cited for a lack of fire hose, lack of nozzles, not enough extra equipment, including adapters, flashlights, radios, etc. This is engine 4. It's a 1988 Ford. It is obsolete. The builder has been closed for over 20 years. We can't get parts for it. The pump is in need of multiple repairs. It is not certified. This truck was cited for no hose test records, and same as the others, not enough equipment to operate effectively. One of my brand new volunteers texted me this picture Sunday rather. He took his family out, showing his new fire truck at the station where he's been assigned, and he sent me this picture. He says, Chief, you know we don't have enough nozzles, right? We can't fight a brush fire with this. And I had to tell him, yes, I'm aware. This is our newest engine. This is a 2005. It also has an uncertified pump. It was cited for not having enough hose to adequately function, no hose test records, and like the other trucks, not enough equipment to operate. This is the hose bed where we put the supply line like I showed you earlier. If you'll notice, about half of that bed is empty. Each truck needs 1,200 feet of supply line to be able to stretch from hydrant to a fire, especially in Holiday Island where we have such wide space in between the hydrants. Most of our trucks only have about 600 feet. So to attach the hydrant and lay enough line, we require at least 2 or 3 fire trucks. We also have a ladder truck, which helped us with was allegedly going to help us with our credit. It's a 1991. Unfortunately, the manufacturer went out of business 6 years after they built the truck. So we can't get parts for it. As a matter of fact, last year, Chief Lederker was telling me that the tires need to be removed and replaced due to some dry rot, and they no longer make tires for it. He could only find tires in 3 places, and they were lucky enough to get a nearly new set to put on. The inspector noted that the truck was lacking almost all of its equipment, including fans, thermal imaging camera, no rescue tools, does not have enough ladders to be a ladder truck, no current ladder testing, no saws, no loose equipment, no trained staff assigned to operate the ladder truck. But he was generous. We have a truck, so he gave us a quarter of a point for our ladder truck. Some general observations on our fire equipment, our fire trucks from the examiner was, for a department your size, you should have a reserve engine, so if any of them are out of service, like our engine 5 went out of service Thursday with a pump problem during training, that we should be able to have another truck step up and take its place. Your engines are poorly equipped. You have not annually certified your pumps as required. Your ladders have not been tested, and you have not been performing your annual hose testing. Now, if you remember, I mentioned earlier that we have the station that's located up on State Line Drive. ISO declined to credit that as a fire station because to be credited, it must have a working fire truck. We only have 4 working fire trucks out of 5 stations. So they declined to credit that station. In their interpretation, that means North Holiday Island will be given the 10 rating. Unfortunately, my concern with this is that is our poorest neighborhoods. This is where we have multiple trailer homes, older houses, and some of the folks that would suffer most from the increase in house insurance. One of the thoughts that occurred to me was, well, maybe we could shuffle trucks around. But the way these stations are rated, that you have to have a certain radius around each station, all it would do would be moving that burden to another place. I certainly don't want to put it on Sunfest or Peachtree Village. Don't want to put it out here and cause problems for the island with all of our parks and rec out there and the condominiums. Certainly don't want to do it in the general area of Holiday Island where we've got so many homes. So that's going to be an issue. Well, I don't want to just come to you with problems and complaints and make us look like we're a terrible department. I don't feel that way. I think we've got potential to be a wonderful department. So here's my recommendations for us to improve the department and to recover our rating. One is we've got to do something with staffing. My recommendation is to hire 3 more full-time personnel. Now keep in mind, personnel are one of the most expensive things you can have in any department, and is always heavy on the budget. However, I do think we need it. Even though we've had more personnel joining, at times we still have a very poor turnout. Being that we run a lot of medicals, having 2 people instead of 1 will help when we have these frequent lift assists, where we have to get somebody up off the floor. If we have to do CPR, that our single on-duty person is not doing CPR for 10 minutes waiting on volunteers. Also, it will help with turnouts for fires. 2 weeks ago, dear, you remember the storm about 2 weeks ago, the real had all the lightning in it? We were requested to assist Eagle Rock Fire Department. They had a house that was possibly hit by lightning, was on fire. You've always heard us preach as fire departments, don't go back in your burning house. Well, unfortunately, a gentleman chose to go back in. They were faced with a rescue situation. As soon as they were dispatched, they asked for us to assist. Fortunately, they were able to get the gentleman out, put him in an ambulance, and he survived. Unfortunately for us, our turnout for this fire was 2 volunteers. So we were not able to provide the aid that we should have been to our neighbors because we're depending on them to give us aid in turn to help us out. So I would recommend that we go with 3 more full-time personnel. That way we'll have 2 available at all times. During the weekday, we have a shortage of volunteers because they're at work, they're playing golf, they're going to Rogers to the doctor's office, they have their grandkids, they have activities of daily living to take care of. By having some part-time staff to cover in the weekdays, then that relieves part of the volunteer burden. Also, we'd like to implement some incentives for our volunteers to train more, staff the stations, and that's a kicker, staff the stations. We did find out from ISO that if we can get our volunteers to actually stay at the station for a few hours at a time on a shift schedule, they'll actually count them as a full-timer rather than as a volunteer because they're actually staffing the station and cuts down on response times. So if we can come up with an incentive program, that would help tremendously. We also need to implement a comprehensive volunteer recruitment and retention program. The problem with this is Holiday Island does not have a large pool of volunteers. Now don't get me wrong, we've got wonderful volunteers, and we've got a lot of great people that help. We don't have ones that are physically capable of firefighting. We've got traffic directors, we've got engine drivers, we've got people that can do EMS, actual firefighters, as you saw earlier. We only have about 5 volunteers, and of those 2 are career firefighters of the departments that live here. Also, we need to increase the staffing because we're not able to meet the Code of Federal Regulations 2 in, 2 out rule. This is a federal rule that says if you're going to send 2 people in a house, you must have 2 people on the outside, equally trained, fully equipped with no other duties other than to go in and help if they get in a bind inside. And we're not able to meet that mandate. Also, we want to pick up with the hydrant testing. That takes at least 2 people because you have to have them at 2 separate hydrants to be able to do adequate testing. In addition, hose testing is a 4-person job. Our volunteers have already been tasked with all of these additional training requirements and a climbing call volume. We're up to just short of 200 calls for this year already. So I don't think it's fair to put volunteers having to do all this physical menial labor that paid staff could take care of. We had them. Other recommendations I have is, remember I mentioned 3 full-timers? If we can make one of those a credentialed training officer, we can take care of some of those training needs in-house without having to go outside the department. That would also put us in compliance with the Arkansas Fire Academy and their mandates to us on minimal training. That officer could take care of the new hire program, our driver training, recruit training, and our in-house training. We have been working on the company training. We've split our volunteers into 3 groups, each one headed up by a full-timer, and they're trying to arrange for these groups to come in on the time off to do some of the training that we're required. Recommendations, of course, with those outdated vehicles, we need to do something with those. My recommendation is to get rid of the 3 most outdated and replace them with modern fire engines. I'd like to retain the best of those old trucks as a reserve. That way we get credit for that one. Also, we need to properly equip all of our trucks and our ladder to meet the specifications for ISO. And since that ladder truck is very aged and they are very expensive, we need to start putting aside money to replace it. To that end, I'd recommend starting a specific vehicle replacement fund just for the fire department. I understand that Holiday Island has one already for vehicles in general, and I want to say thank you to Danny Presley because we have been discussing what we can do already to find replacement fire engines. Somebody asked this morning, how much does one cost? A replacement fire truck, brand new, is about $400,000. That's a lot of money. Plus, there's about a 1.5-year wait time, or 3-year wait time, depending on who you buy from, due to still supply shortages, personnel shortages at the plants. My recommendation is to find some quality used fire engines that will save us money but still meet the need. Water supply issues. One of the things that we need to do with the water department is to start a comprehensive maintenance program. I asked Dan Schrader, I said, do you keep a record of every time you maintenance a fire hydrant? And he said, regrettably, no. They have no database of fire hydrants, no way to show that they have been doing any repairs or maintenance. So I would ask the water department to start doing that with detailed record keeping. On the fire department side, when we do flow testing of the hydrants, we need to keep detailed records and make sure that we put those records where they belong so we can access them next time. We also need to start cycling out those old tanker fire trucks for newer, higher payload vehicles. Fortunately, that is something that we can work on over time. It's not something we need to tackle right this very moment. Dan told me that we only have 5 fire hydrants out of service. One of the rumors was half our fire hydrants don't work. Only 5 are out of service at the moment, and if we can get those replaced in the next 6 months, that will help with our rating as well. I also...
Can I interrupt?
Sure.
5 out of how many? Is it 200 and... What's the number, Dan? 230 something? Is that ballpark?
More than 200.
And I would also recommend, I know Dan doesn't have a lot of staff, I'd recommend another person for his department that is tasked primarily with fire hydrant maintenance, assisting the fire department with records. That way we can work together. Plus you'd have a person that when they're not doing fire hydrants can help him with the water plant and the sewer plant. As we replace water mains due to breakages, I recommend upsizing our water mains so that we'll have more than the 4-inch pipes. Miscellaneous suggestions also is, speaking of those 3 full-time people, let's get our money's worth, make one of them a fire inspector, qualified fire inspector. That way we can get extra bonus points for our inspection process, and as our city of Holiday Island develops, we can work in conjunction with their code enforcement to make sure we stay on the same page. Of course, it goes without saying, we've got to do better with our records in the fire department. That's embarrassing to have paperwork lost and scattered. We're working with 911 already to improve. I've requested to be on their new board to oversee their 911 system. We also need to develop a 5 to 10-year and 20-year plan to address Holiday Island as it changes. Unfortunately, I think volunteers are going to become more and more of a rare thing. People don't volunteer anymore. They are having to work more. I lost 2 volunteers last week, 2 younger people, due to job changes. They no longer have time to volunteer. Unfortunately, one of them was on his way to being a wonderful firefighter, and the other was a great responder. So we need to look at how are we going to address the call volume, because it's obviously going up. Every year we're getting busier, busier, busier. And as more people move in, they're used to having emergency services like in their city, where you dial 911, you get everything and everybody. And they don't quite realize that sometimes we're volunteer and we're slow. We also need to implement a large equipment replacement fund for the larger items that we use at the fire department. My last recommendation set is to review the fire department budget and adjust. We have several limitations we're functioning under with our current budget. Protective gear, last year we were budgeted $6,000. This year we're down to $3,500. That only buys us about 2 sets of gear, and the gear sets are size specific to the individual, and they're only good for 10 years, and then we have to take them out of service. Equipment purchases, we have numerous items that are needed on our fire engines, but we're limited to $4,000 in our budget. We reimburse our volunteers for their time, for training, for attending calls. Last year we were budgeted $16,000. This year we only have $8,000 to pay our volunteers. Vehicle maintenance is a biggie. Fortunately, Mr. Presley has been wonderful with helping us. We're over budget on this. We were budgeted less than $5,000, but if you count our boat, we have 18 vehicles. There is no way we're already way over that, and I have a $20,000 repair pending to the ladder truck because of some broken issues on it. Remember, we had a big training deficit, that we didn't have the training that we needed. We only have $3,000 to address that. In our uniform budget, to buy traffic vests, winter coats, and uniforms, shirts, work shirts for our fire department members, we only have $2,000. Our equipment repair fund to repair small engines, saws, air packs, we only have $3,800. I've already blown that with a simple repair of our air system that compresses and cleans air to put in our air pack bottles for fires is obsolete. They had to find parts for us. It cost me $6,000 to repair the one piece of equipment. So I've already blown that part of our budget for the year. Building maintenance, we were allocated $5,000 this year. That's $1,000 per station. I've already had to fix 2 heaters, 2 plumbing problems, and at our primary station we're having to replace electrical outlets and light switches because they're old and they're starting to arc or completely fail. So it's embarrassing if your own fire station burns down. So we've been working on repairing that as well. So in summary, I know I've taken up a lot of your time. I appreciate it. Unfortunately, there's some urgency to this. We have been given 1 year to fix things to clear up our rating or improve our rating. We're down to 11 months. Remember, we can't do much with communications. The water department's going to take time, so it's going to have to come out of the fire department with staffing, the vehicles, and equipment. I appreciate your time today. I know I've taken up a lot of your morning. Thank you for listening. I look forward to seeing what we can do.
You brought reinforcements.
Sure, I'd be glad
Can you
to.
tell us what they do?
I'm going to start on my right here. We have Lieutenant Zach Schultz. He's one of my full-timers. He comes from Greensboro, South Carolina, and was a career firefighter, was on rescue in a ladder truck there, decided to slow down and come to the easier life of Holiday Island. Somehow I don't think he feels that way. Right next to him, I have another one of our full-timers. This is Leonard Walton. Leonard was a division captain in the Houston area on a large fire department there. He is very mechanically inclined, which is one of our saving graces. He also owns his own electric company on the side. Let's see, with our volunteers in the front row here, we have Nita Holly and Judy Giggy. Both of those are support personnel that help us around the station with filing and smaller projects, and they're also on our auxiliary, which I am grateful for. Right next to him is Tyler Scroggins. He is one of our volunteer firefighters and responders, as well as being an employee of HISID. And he is real handy because he's one of those interior firefighters that can bust through a door and drag somebody out. Right behind, we have two more volunteers. This is Kelly and Carl Trahan. Kelly is one of our leading EMS people. She's been around for a while. She is a very prolific responder. We're grateful to have her. Right next to her is her husband, Carl. Carl is one of our engine drivers. He is responsible for the engine that is located up on the island itself, to stay there close. Let's see, on my far side over here, I have Mr. Dave Dobrin. He is one of our rookie firefighters. He's in training. We have nicknamed him, I'm going to embarrass you, sorry. We have nicknamed him Mystic Dave because Dave goes in, fixes something, and goes south. And if we're not there, we'll come in, we'll find things have been moved and something's been fixed, and we know Mystic Dave has been there. So we're blessed to have him. Also, behind me here, I have one of our newest people. This is Lacey Davis. She's a college student. She's in a paramedic program at Harrison. She's already an EMT, and she has been a wonderful responder. She's been one of the only volunteers that's been willing to staff the station for 12 hours at a time. So we appreciate her helping out. And we have many other fantastic responders.
Thank you, Chief, I appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you. Sure.
Chief, thank you very much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. You were kind enough to come to our church a couple of weeks ago and talk about 30 men's group members, and but you've got so much more information today. I wish you had been here when we were planning the budget in September and October, because a couple of weeks ago we approved the new plan and the budget for the rec center. And with that, I won't go into detail about it, but it was about $1 million. With the demolition and the new building, it might be about $1 million. We had a paper on that meeting where we had between $3 and $4 million in different accounts, different funds. And what I'd like to do is ask my commissioner colleagues and Mr. Presley to look at our budget now, 2023 budget. And a budget is going to be amended. It's planned and it's put in effect by January 1st to December 31st. But as needs arise, we can change that budget. And you've got enough things here on the screen today that are very, very important. Fire insurance and fire protection is the number one thing for me. Police and fire. And I think we can do many of those things without breaking the budget. And we should have probably been doing them several years in a row. And I've been on the board 6 years now, going on my 7th year. And I can't remember when we've had a plea for services or the equipment and so forth that has been as powerful as what you got this morning. But I have a couple, so I think we can do things now, not next January, not next December, but now to meet the needs, not all, but some of the needs that you described. And I think we should just really work hard to get down to 5. I have a couple questions before we turn it over to the chair. Who keeps the records? When you said we're behind on records in many areas, who would be responsible for doing that?
That's the responsibility of the fire chief, to keep up with the records, make sure they're filed appropriately and able to pull them at need.
Okay. With you being new and being so many things like this ISO, is there any possibility that any one of the members of the auxiliary could come in and do that? You know, with a couple.
They already have been.
They have.
Yes. Also, we had one of our firefighters was out on after had surgery and is also offered to come in and help with some of the filing and getting the files up to speed, which I appreciate.
Okay. Another question I have is, what does company training mean?
Company training is the in-house station training. It's not to any specific project, but it allows the group to train together so that when they're actually on a scene, they function as a group and as a fire company.
Is that what you do on Tuesday night, Tuesday?
That's department training. That's department-wide for everyone. Each of our 3 full-timers has a group of volunteers assigned to them, and they're trying to make arrangements with each of their individual groups to come in and train for 2 or 3 hours once or twice a week, try to meet that company training, where the small group learns to work more together.
Okay. And the last question is, just for peace, Jack Eaton is here. He's been a great fire chief and a great member of our community for years. He's over at the, I think there's a business committee chairman of the Carroll County Farm Court. I think I read in the paper, Jack, where you were looking at 374,000 or some figure like that for communications upgrades. Where are we with that, and will that help our fire department?
We're actually spending in excess of $4 million.
Okay.
That's upgrading the dispatch, going to be a new tower at Holiday Island at the park, another new tower on 23 South. Everything will be together, will be digital, and that should be up and going before the end of the year.
So that'll help the problem with the...
Oh, yes, definitely. Because Holiday Island here is fixing about 14, but we're a little over 1,500 feet, and the park will get ready to build that tower, and that tower will be 180 feet tall.
Okay.
And so we can hit all the dead spots.
Will that be all through iPhones or pages or what?
That will be strictly for the radios. There have been some organizations contact us about possibly getting on the tower. The county's just implemented a new system that's going to help them, or all fire departments will be hooking up on cell phones.
Okay.
And we'll be implementing that, and our new OEM will be taking care of that, and it should be going online this next month. And so, you know, the county is working hard to try to get everything done. Like I said, we're going to spend in excess of $4 million before it's over with, upgrading our communication system.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
One item, if I may throw in, we're correct in that there's a matter of urgency. One of the things that ISO has requested is a comprehensive plan on how we're going to fix things, and we have only 2 months to present that plan.
Thank you, Mr. Hayes. I really appreciate your presentation this morning. It's clear, easy to understand. I've learned over 40 years it doesn't do any good to look backward. We have to look forward and see how we're going to do remediate this. So I'm encouraging you, you're working with Mr. Presley to develop a prioritized plan and whatever ISO needs to put in place and bring it to the board for us to review and approve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. We appreciate your presentation.
You bet. I appreciate y'all's time. Thank you.
Will you turn the mic off? Coming with, we appreciate all your service. It's about 10:30. I think we will take a 10-minute break, and then we'll come back and finish our agenda. Now that's enough.
We checked earlier. The company was doing the tower. I've got we need a lot of dirt all day.
So I don't know if it's,
You probably have to take.
that's a bit fuzzy.
Okay, because that is, that's right.
There you go.
And that's everything.
Let's please come to order.
Yeah, you're gonna get it.
Let's please come to order. We will now move on to the business portion of our meeting. We have no old business to discuss. Our new business is to receive and accept the report of the 2022 year-end financials. The question is to receive and accept the 2022 year-end financials as presented by the accountant. Do I have a motion to the question?
I make a motion that we review and consider accepting the year-end.
Do I have a second?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded to consider the question of our year-end financials. Mr. Presley, and we have with us also our accountant, Jennifer Head, and it's your turn.
All right.
Take it away.
Well, this, Sherry, can you put that up for us, please? Please, you have please. I think, yeah, yesterday. That's okay. It's, well, I don't know if you can access your email.
I
so.
can't.
All right, well, this report is consistent with what I produce for the board each month, but obviously we've just added December 22 on here. And the first page, and I know commissioners, you all have a copy of this, the first page are our expenditures for 2022. And obviously there are a lot of ups and downs here. Some departments are over and some departments are under. Overall, we ended up with a total expenditures of $4.9 million, and we were at 116% of budget. And, you know, there were some big ticket items that led us to being over on expenditures. Approximately $100,000 for well number one. We had the demolition and removal of the recreation center that was not budgeted. And trying to think what other big ticket items. Fire department expenses. We spent approximately $200,000. And Chief, I know that your guys have worked really hard repairing equipment, tires, brakes, pumps. But, you know, those are things that we just have to have. So anyway, 116% of budget is where we were on expenditures. Now, if you'll go to the next page, please. This page shows you revenue.
Thank goodness it's 120%.
And it's 120%. And I want to note this is non-AOB revenue. This does not include the AOBs. And revenue was $2,475,000.
Essentially, we're almost $200,000 in revenue. Is that strictly money from the state, the Act 833 funds, and I can't think of any other income producing dollar.
The city gives us a contribution for the fire department, and that's also reflected here.
That's right.
And thank you, Mayor.
Yes. Yes. You can see we need it.
Yeah. So if you look at the next page, you can see revenue versus expenditures overall. Now, once again, these expenditures are showing $4.9 million, and we budgeted $4.2 million. This, once again, is non-AOB revenue. Okay? So those expenditures were $2,475,000. The following page shows you total revenue, including the AOBs, was $6.3 million. And that is $100,000 of surplus sales that we had, over $600,000 for the deal with American Tower on the cell tower easement. And then you can see that delta there would be the AOBs. Expenditures of $4.9 million.
And these are the finalized closed out figures, correct?
That is correct, at year end.
Okay. I have a question going back to the first page.
The first page?
Yeah, that you're green graph there.
Okay.
We had 4 departments that were under 100%, but the 9 departments were over, like you said, some of the reasons for that. Would that give us some indication next fall, September, October, when we're building the 24 budget, to look at departments that had to go over and whatever the reasons were, and maybe trying to adjust their budget and kind of determine what needs they would have to make it so they would be on budget. In other words, I think we're going to have to, if 9 out of 13 departments are over, then it looks like we didn't budget enough last December, October, November. And I know we had wells and the things that you just brought up, the rec center and the fire department, 200,000, but some of the others, they were 9% over, 13% over, 27% over. Like for instance, the restaurant, if it went to 192,000 running off. So I guess we're looking, if we're ever going to have a 5-year plan, and we talked about that one time, 5 or 7-year plan, maybe one for the fire department, but for the whole ISID in general, and the big ticket items that would be needed, renovation, so forth, maybe we could plan those over 2 or 3 years and put it in the budget so it wouldn't be over budget. Am I making myself clear?
Yes, sir. Those big ticket items like capital expenditures are on a 5-year plan. And that plan is updated every year. And as you mentioned at budget time, we study that and then the board makes those priorities for those big ticket items. So my sense is, based on many years of doing budgets, if you see where we went 103%, so we were 3% over budget.
Yeah.
Those are probably incidentals, maintenance costs, this and that. And when you see, 140%, there's probably a one-off big ticket item that happened that was unanticipated, and we just had to pay for it. Such as when well number 1 went out and it cost $100,000 to fix it. And I think there will always be those one-off, unanticipated things that just hit, and there's no way to foresee that.
Well, and it's a little deceptive to look at the departments too, because like the campground is 128% of the budget, but that's only $21,000.
Correct. Apparently, that's not very much money.
And the restaurant is 127%, but that's, you know, 192, which is not much when you're looking at $5 million.
Correct.
On the roads, it's 69%. Is that because we co-op with the city and the grant for Hawk Drive and State Line?
That is correct, yes. And so that was an offset.
But we get some concerns, mostly concerns about water issues, but we get some concerns about roads. When we're looking for next year, then if we don't have a grant with the city of any kind, would we think of raising that up so that we either A, do more paving or more repairs or whatever? In other words, they came in at 70% rather than 100% on roads.
Okay, yes, sir. You know, those large expenditures are whatever is the pleasure of the board. And I will make the budget happen accordingly.
Like, for instance, the new dump truck that we just bought, and that's going to be a snow removal piece of equipment. I was glad we got that. You and Mike found that. That's great. Would that be in capital equipment, or would that be under the road budget?
Comes out of it.
It's capital.
But you'll see it under the department when you look at their,
Okay.
the expense is under their department code, under the line item for capital.
Thank you.
So you raise department expenses, but lower the vehicle fund?
When it gets expense, when a piece of equipment that falls under the over $5,000, that gets theirs, it's expense on their P&L under capital. What you do is after for the audit entries and everything, what we do is we not everything. So if the truck was purchased, then you add right, so that you get the total amount for that asset. Then you look and you go with the schedule of what we've got historically with the auditors, their useful life. And then at the end of the year, you're from expense, but you move it to the balance sheet where you put it under asset, and then it goes onto the depreciation schedule, and that's where the depreciation expense is. Yes, ma'am.
Same thing that would happen if the board decides to buy a $400,000 truck, a used truck, and we had the money in a fund to buy that truck in this year, this budget year, then it would look like the fire department was over budget by $400,000, but the money would actually come out of the capital outlay fund.
Right, because it's just the way and the journal entries and moving the money from restricted funds to the money market or whatever, you'll see, if that's what you get and you use some of the restricted funds, then on the balance sheets at each month, and you would see where your, the value in the restricted funds will go down and your money market will go up because you've got that movement, which is journal entry, I don't want to pay for it, but during the year, you're going to see that line item on their expense report showing that major expense, and then at the end of the year is when you'll see your adjusting audit entry, moving it off of the P&L onto the balance sheet under the fixed assets.
Good. I'm glad you're here because that explains it for me now. So we could do that, what you just described. Let's say it's a $400,000 truck, it might not be, but let's say it is. Then the board could approve that. The funds are there in an account to pay for that used truck. And it would show at the end of the year, like you was over $400,000, but really the money would come out of another capital fund.
Right, I mean, it's going to show during the year that he's over, but like I said, because a lot of times other departments or other cities, we have a 13 calendar reporting period. So period 13 is where we do all of our adjusting audit entries for all of the auditors and things like that. So that at the end of the year, most people will see that stay on the department's P&L through the end of the year, and they don't see that. But because this financial software is only a 12, That's why in December, you kind of look and you're like, well, what's happening? You know, why did it go from this to this when you're looking at the P&L? And it's because of that line item that's called, actually about something in the restaurant. I forgot what that line item is called. It is capital improvements, the dash equipment or design facility. So you'll see it carried, and then you look at the end of the year, you'll notice that for December, there's a negative credit balance of $52,000 in the fire department for the month, but that's because it's a journal entry moving off the $52,000 that was spent on that equipment, whatever equipment it was, to the balance sheet. It's placed on the depreciation schedule, and then based on how many months was in service during 2022, you use those formulas and their useful life to do your depreciation expense, and the depreciation goes on to that. So,
Good, thank you.
I also want to note there is a bottom threshold on some of these accounts, though. The reserve account, per our policy that was established by this board, we have to maintain 35%. We'll get to that here later in these charts, but we're at 35.3 currently. The other account that I want to mention is the equipment replacement fund. And I don't remember what's in there now. I think it was around $260,000. But when you look at all of the equipment that we have to take a percentage of what it would take to replace that. And that percentage amount we have to keep in the equipment replacement fund, and we're required by policy and by accounting practices to maintain that. So ideally, we're not supposed to dip below that. And you don't want to take, our required percentage is around $270,000 in the equipment replacement fund. Okay, next is the 2022 AOB revenue. And you'll see the green line that's flat across the middle of this chart. That is what our projection was. It was around 2.4 million. And you'll see that in the yellow is the 22 AOB collections. We collected $2,209,000. So we fell a little short of our projections. When we send out AOB bills, which they just went out a couple of weeks ago, they go out in February. They're due by October. And, you know, we collect those kind of incrementally throughout the year. We do see an uptick in October. People tend to wait, you know, till the end to pay. We collect about 80 to 85% of the AOBs that we bill out. And that's been the trend. You know, I went back and looked like 5 or 6 years back. It's between 80 and 85% every year. So we came up a little short there, but not too far off from that. Next page, so this shows again our reserves. We've been at 35.1% on our reserves for almost all of 2022. And as you all know, if you bought a car, built a house, or whatever, interest rates have really, really increased. Most of our investments, which is where, you know, we have our reserves in investments in C, and we were getting, you know, 0.3%, maybe 0.4%. We got lucky, but we send those out for bid, and now we're getting like 3.5%. So we're collecting about near 10 times the amount of interest on our investments as what we were. It's something that I watch very closely. Every 3 or 4 months, those CDs come due, and we send it out for bid and hope to get a better rate. And we've done really well now. We've moved all of that money into investments making over 3%. And so hopefully you'll see this reserves start to increase as that interest income comes in. So next page is our money market balance. We ended the year at $2,381,000, which is still pretty strong. We were above 2019 and 2020. And we spent some of those unanticipated expenses, like I mentioned, the well and what was the other big ticket item that I mentioned? We had the well and the fire department expenses. About $200,000 worth of equipment repairs to fire trucks doing. And I think that's some of what you're seeing there in that decrease in the money market balance. But we finished the year pretty strong. The next page is the monthly cash flow. And restricted cash. Restricted cash is up a little bit, and I'm not sure why. Jennifer, you may know why would restricted cash jump between September and October? It increased quite a bit. That may be
That's because,
when we set aside.
the fire department sold, some assets, so we restricted that for, fire department use only, so that's why that.
Also, the cell tower money. Well, because we took that almost $800,000 from the cell tower plus the surplus. We moved it into a restricted fund for major water projects. And those are the projects that we're currently working on, the DSI, the bid packets, and all of that. So that's, okay. That's what that increase is there. And then you can see we finished the total cash on hand. All accounts was $4,841,000 as we closed the year. So I am happy to answer any questions, and if it gets into the journal entries and audit entries and all of that, I'll hand it off to the resident expert here on the accounting.
First, I would ask if there are any questions from the.
I have one, and that is if the chief needs any money between now and the end of the year, and he thinks that that'll help our ISO rating, could he come to you, Danny, as district manager and propose either a truck, or equipment, or nozzles, or uniforms, or whatever he brought up today, and that would come to the board as not emergency purposes, but some things to get our ISO back to the
Yes, sir. He's already done that. We have met 2 or 3 times and discussed our plan moving forward. And Chief, I appreciate your research on that. And you know I'm behind you 100%. We have to have that stuff. We want our community to be safe and keep that ISO rating where it's at. So I'll go ahead and throw this out there. He has located a truck that I think is still a good option for us. Have you made that trip yet?
No, it'll be March 6th.
March the 6th, they're going to go look at this truck and make sure it's really as advertised. The truck is $119,000. It is a rescue pumper tanker. It carries, it was a lot, like
720.
yeah, so that's a pretty good amount of water to have on a rescue truck. And it will have a new engine in it, a new Cummins diesel engine that is known for longevity. And as he and I were having this discussion a couple of weeks ago, he also had a proposal to of the older apparatus that are now obsolete sell. And so I think it makes sense. As I said, Chief, I appreciate your homework on that, and I hope that checks out as advertised, and we can go ahead and move on that. And obviously I will be bringing that to the board for your review and hopefully approval if everything looks good on it.
And the good news is March 6th is next Monday. It's not that far.
Next one.
Not that far away. Yeah. So, and there will be others. Chief and I discussed this. We know we have to move quickly to to get ahead of this ISO rating. And so with the board's support, I don't plan to waste any time in getting this new truck here and then continuing to try to find a second truck.
And those smaller items that you mentioned, by smaller, I mean smaller costs, like hoses and uniforms and things that could be a safety situation.
Well, in my mind, Commissioner, that's easy. Nozzles, breaching tools, gloves, bunker gear, those types of things are easy done. And I know Chief is already working on ordering some of that stuff. So, because I've told him multiple times, order it. Gotta have it. So.
Well, and I would like to thank the chief for being on the hunt for this new equipment. We bought 2 new trucks, one brand new and one slightly used, to add to the road department because of people working hard and having their eye out. I don't know, Craigslist or Auto Trader, I don't know where they came from, but we found them. And that's the thing we need to continue to do is keep our eye out for any opportunities to add to the fleet and retire some of that old equipment.
Chief, will they come back and do a follow-up at the end of the year, or is it just a matter of you putting a plan in place?
What they want is in the next 2 months for us to have a comprehensive and solid plan. These are our actions. And then we have about 6 months to implement that. And then last 2 or 3 months to see how it's going. And then they will, depending on how well we're doing, they will review it on paperwork only. Or if we don't seem to be showing any progress, they're just going to say we're done.
Okay. So it's going to be dependent on getting paperwork.
Yes.
Right.
We've got to show that we're moving forward.
Commissioners,
I just want to say,
go ahead.
no, I need to wait till the commissioner comments.
Okay. We will now comments, and Mr. Mills, you had asked to speak.
Ken Mills, 20 Rocky Top Circle. I have been dealing with the problem of understanding what kind of accounting we're doing. I was on the board quite a few years, and I thought we were doing governmental accounting because everything was expensed when we bought it, and I finally figured it out. We operate like we're a government entity for 12 months. At the end of the 12 months, we wipe out the capital equipment items that can be capitalized, and then we set those up. We put them in fixed assets, and we depreciate them, and depreciation is treated as a real expense. And that was what I was having. If we were governmental, depreciation is not an expense, it's a memo entry. Because I worked with governmental accounting for a long time. And so now I finally understand it, and I won't come up with any more stupid questions.
No question.
Well, if you don't understand it, I mean, because for all intents and purposes, you operate as a government entity, and your accounting system showed that, and that's all I ever saw. But I found the December statements where you made the adjusting entries. So now I understand it. And for budgetary purposes, it probably works. The only really question I had, and I couldn't find it in the statutes, is what are you required to be? Commercial?
No, if you look in the auditors report.
Yeah, I know it says enterprise, and I looked up enterprise, and they kept telling me I could buy all these enterprise accounting systems.
Basically what,
It's just
it's just because when you're doing accounting, you can kind of fall under 3 different categories. Enterprise accounting, governmental accounting, and
corporate.
Fiduciary accounting, I believe is the third. There's actually 5, but those are the 3 main ones. reason that Holiday Island falls under what we have to do enterprise accounting.
Which is like a normal commercial business, it's not in.
Well, what makes us have to do the enterprise accounting is because engineering and the way, because of the, I'm trying to, the way the law, the things are, the, what is the word? Sorry, the stat, yes, thank you, are written, enterprise accounting, you show revenue when you bill. And because y'all do billings and everything through assessments, water bills and things like that, it falls under the enterprise type accounting. So that's why when on the P&Ls, you see 2.8 million, I'm just throwing out numbers, 2.8 million in assessments, but you haven't received that.
Right.
Because so your other entry is on your balance sheet where you have to set up ARs. So that's the difference, because if you're governmental, you're like a cash basis.
And
But we do, Holiday Island does billings, therefore it falls under that.
Okay.
It falls
Like I
under
say,
enterprise.
I understand what you're doing now.
Yes.
You kept it, I was on the board for 9 years, and you totally kept it from me.
No, Bill, one of the things.
I don't think she's been here now.
One of the things that's really helped, because I think we've all been concerned that those assessments fall, on the general ledger in March, because you're not going to get anything. Jennifer gives us a report every month that shows how much money came in place and how much went out. So we know that last year we actually lost $67,000.
Well, you still got a problem with, you got over $1 million worth of unpaid assessments that you're gonna have to write off at some point in time.
Yeah.
And so,
Those are currently being worked, and it did go down because of the foreclosures, from my understanding.
can you not write them off before you foreclose?
No, sir, because they're still on your billings.
But what, you could put an allowance for unpaid or uncollectible.
There is a percentage amount.
But your balance sheet doesn't show the one that the auditor does.
Thank you, Mr. Bill.
Well, thank you all. I wouldn't bother you more. I understand it now.
Help me with pronouncing your name, Alex. Thorosi?
Yes, yes.
Say it for me.
Alex Thorosi, 158 Holiday Island Drive. My only question or comment would be, of all the recommendations that the golf study made, I think you've acted on 2. You've closed the driving range and you've upped the fees. I'd like to know if the board intends to implement or act on any of the other recommendations that were made in that study. And if so, give a report to the community about what you're going to do or not going to do.
Lauren has put together like a citizens committee. It's not a committee of this board, it's not my committee, it's his committee, because he runs the golf operations. And they have met a couple of times, considered a lot of different things, 2 of which you mentioned, and you are correct. A third one that I would like to point out is that part of the loss that we were incurring in the golf courses is the fact that we didn't have available tee times during peak times when people want to come play golf, and that's usually in the mornings from 7, 8, 9 o'clock in the mornings. And the golf leagues here, Hilga and Yimga, I didn't want to get that wrong. I know that's
And the old coots.
and the old coots. No offense to anybody that's, if you're an old coot. But anyway, so Lauren has met with the leadership of those organizations to try to work cooperatively to adjust those tee times. Now I have learned that that's not easy to do. You kind of have to tiptoe around that. But he's kind of trying to work on it to open up more tee times at desirable tee times to bring in outside business. We're losing a lot of revenue. And that's one of the things that was pointed out in the golf study. So that's the third item that we're working on.
I would also say that the golf study was, so much of it, there was no way for it to apply to us in our community with our limited growth. It's not like we're able to have a new development and be able to bring in 100 golfers or 500 golfers to join a club. What Lauren's group is doing and what the board suggested for overall is that we pick and choose what we can do. We can look for opportunities. He's looking for opportunities to make more money. We're looking at closing the golf range because of the driving range because of liability. We're and the ability to transfer an employee who is taking care of the driving range to the rest of the operating staff. So it's not anything that, it's a pick and choose, least expensive, always with an eye to the bottom line. We're not going to go to kitchen hours, restaurant hours that are not feasible for Holiday Island. And so that's the approach that we have taken with the golf study.
Could I follow up with one comment based on what you just said?
Sure.
One, you're talking about loss of revenue and how to increase revenue by changing the hours as an example. One opportunity of increasing revenue right off the bat is if the customers and the people that come and play golf would realize, especially the people who live here, that you don't bring your own food and drink into a restaurant. None of us, if we owned a restaurant, would allow people to walk in off the street and you're coming to a place that serves food and beverages and they're going to bring their own and just use your facility and sit there. Doesn't make sense. Now that might be hard to police, but to me it comes up to integrity, honesty. People should say, that's right, I'm going to support this facility because I use it. I'm not going to come in and take advantage of it. So to me that would be something that should be implemented too. At least put the word out to everybody that uses the golf course. Folks, don't bring your stuff here. Buy it here. Don't bring it here. That's simple.
And sure, Alex, we did one other thing at the approval of the amenity fees. Since I've been here 16 years, everybody says our golf rates are too cheap. Everybody's getting a free ride and so forth and so on. We raised the individual yearly membership from 750 to 900. I don't know what percentage that is. I can't figure out that math this time of the morning, but that was a bump. That was from $50. We went $150. For a family of two, I think it went from $900 to $1,200. So, as I mentioned before in this meeting, Marilyn Clay, who used to be in our office, said every time we raise 5%, we lose about 5% of the golfers, which you can see by the number of memberships we sold. So March 1st or April 1st, I think is when we start that. So we'll see. We also eliminated punch cards. We also eliminated the 9-hole separate from the 18-hole. So some of the people who live on the 9-hole want to just play there. That's no longer possible. You'll pay the same green fee for either one. We did raise the daily fees, and I think they're, in competition with some of the other courses that are like ours, quality. So I think there were some things that were, as the chair said, were way out of our league as far as implementing. For instance, he wanted $1.6 million more for golf maintenance. $1.6 million. That's not going to happen. But some of the things that were doable and would make more money and make it a better operation, I think the district manager and the golf people are doing.
Okay. Are you ready for the question? The question. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it, and the 2022 financials are accepted.
And then one comment that you can make about my question.
Yeah, there was
Sorry, I'm sorry.
some, just real briefly, there was some discussion about the marina contract. The marina contract went into effect January 1st. It is a new contract. We sent that out for RFPs, and we got four people who were interested. And this board interviewed all of the candidates and looked at their business plan, and we are still with KP Dock Services. It's Colin, and I know that a lot of you know Colin. There were a few changes in the contract. The percentage of what HICID receives from sales at the marina has increased somewhat, and I don't remember the percentage. And the other thing that changed was that Colin is going to handle all of the leases for the boat slips, rather than this office staff doing it here. So he will keep that inventory, he will send out the letters and the bills, and he'll collect the money and handle all of that. And then his lease is paying HICID for that percentage of the boat slips. 80% of the total of all boat slips. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what the only changes that we made in the agreement. And if you've not been down there, you'll notice that new walkway was finished about a month or so ago, and the water level just got high enough a couple of weeks ago that he could adjust the walkway, and now the walkway lines up with the sidewalk, so it's more accessible for people with disabilities and so forth. And he's working on some other improvements down there, like just new decking and that sort of thing. So I think we're heading in the right direction. And it was a lot of work to hammer out this new contract, but I'm optimistic about the spring and summer at the marina.
We'll now turn to commissioner comments. I only had one quick comment. I'm not going to name everybody, but our whole staff and a lot of volunteers just did terrific work during the really hard winter we've had so far. We've had 3 snow ice events that we don't usually have to deal with, and a 2-day power outage. And for the record, I want to thank everyone who was involved in getting us through that.
I just want to say congratulations to the fire department auxiliary for the wonderful event that they put on yesterday. And I hesitate to say, I assume from watching everything that Mary Engelhardt perhaps was the chair of it. I don't know if that's true or not, but it was well organized and lots of volunteers, and thank you for having as many of the fire department staff there as you possibly could. Congratulations to you all for that.
Exactly. We need to get to the white elephant sale for that.
All of what Chairperson Surratt said, opening the warming center. I actually was in Texas during that time that all the electricity was out. Thank goodness. Opening the warming center was a wonderful thing to do. I had friends that went up there and were able to use that. So thank you for doing that.
Madam Chair, I echo what Chairman Suzanne said about the Super Bowl yesterday. It was wonderful, and all the other things that both of you brought up about the staff. I was wondering, Danny, I know it's not on the agenda, but do you see any documents coming forward that we would be able to bid on any of these water projects in the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks or so? Do you see any comparison?
I don't have a definitive answer for that, Commissioner. I received a very thorough email from Jeff Denhart, I guess about 10 days ago, that I had sent to the board to give you an update, and that's the latest update that I have. 2 weeks, I would say probably not, but there's another, the next round of grant opportunities is April 17th. Yeah, we missed the February. ESI is working on this, but there's just a lot to it. And, but there's 6 different rounds of windows of opportunity in 2023 for this grant through ANRC, which is Arkansas Natural Resources Commission. We missed the first window. hope to get the second one in April.
I would like to say something about that too. We didn't miss it from inattention or failure to be aware of it. We missed it because our bids were not completed to the point that the commission would accept it. We're waiting for things to fall in our lap. The commission required that the entire bid process, that all of the engineering be presented to them. And we just weren't at that point. And we hope and expect that we will be by April the 17th. So I want to quell that rumor.
Yeah. The other thing I think the community needs to be aware of is Jeff's email indicated that even if you receive the grant today, you might not get the materials to finish that project for another year or year and a half because supply are limited. So, you know, it's not going to happen overnight.
There is a set of parameters and criteria that they use to score these applications for these water projects. And there's several different factors, but probably the number one factor that the state looks at is if you're what they call an LMI community, low to moderate income community. Holiday Island, median income here is higher than that. We are not an LMI community. And so our odds, because of that, our odds of receiving this grant are not very good, to be quite honest. We're going to do everything we can to apply. We're going to be in the ring, giving it our best. But, we'll see how it turns out. But ESI does these engineering and these grants for numerous communities all throughout Arkansas. And they're very much in tune with the application process and all of how they make the sausage in Little Rock and how these decisions are made. And that's the indications that we're getting from ESI. But we're certainly going to be in line with our handout trying to get some money.
But am I correct that once the specs are done, and they're huge, and we will put them out one at a time for bid as appropriate
Project.
for us to do, that we would fund ourselves?
Sure, yes. And
That's this extra money
That's
that
why
was
we
on
have the money sitting there.
$800,000 designated specific.
that is correct.
And that would include everything except the dechlorination.
That's correct
And
also,
that
yes.
we have some time to work towards and can get that either out of our own cash or rolling it along to those methods to pay for that when the time comes for that particular project. Comments from the commissioners? At this time, I would say that, let you all know, our next scheduled meeting is for March the 27th. We do not have any work session scheduled. We will call one if necessary. In the event that we need to meet, if this truck works out and we need to meet and approve an assignment for that, we will call it a special session with 2 hours notice and get your check. So, and good luck. That being said, we will move to adjournment. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we adjourn. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all for your presence.